NASCAR on Netflix is officially here. Let's go over everything that happened with NASCAR's first Netflix docuseries. Yo, what's up everyone? My name is Jett. Thank y'all so much for watching this video. Hope y'all having a wonderful day. We're gonna go over NASCAR's first ever docuseries with Netflix, NASCAR Full Speed. Now this is the NASCAR version of Formula One's Drive to Survive, the show that literally is the sole reason why Formula One became big in America. NASCAR, they're trying to replicate something of that of their own. Now, this is a 5-part, 45-minute episode series discussing the 2023 NASCAR playoffs. We're going to go over not each episode necessarily, but just give you a general basis on what this series was about. If you want to check it out for your own, I highly recommend you doing so because it is amazing. Let's go over some takeaways. The first takeaway that I can immediately think of with this series is that it's NASCAR Full Speed, but it should also be titled The Denny Hamlin Show because Denny was the main character, main protagonist, however you want to call him. He was the guy the entire series from episode 1 to episode 4. Now, the reason why that is such is because the way the 5-episode series was constructed was that episode 1 discussed the final race of the regular season. Episodes 2, 3, and 4 each covered every round. So the round of 16, round of 12, round of 8, and then the final episode, episode number 5, gave an in-depth look at the final race of the season at Phoenix. So, like I said, Denny Hamlin was the main character. Either he was talked about himself directly, talking about his career, his team, whatever, or being mentioned by people in the media, other drivers. You even had William Byron listening to his podcast, also Ross Chastain listening to the podcast. I mean, in some way, shape, or form, Denny was either the main story or had some form of connection to another driver. Now, even though Hamlin was the main driver, there were other drivers on this show, 7 other drivers. You had Bubba Wallace, William Byron, Ross Chastain, Ryan Blaney, Kyle Larson, Joey Logano, and Tyler Reddick. At least that was the original cast. Christopher Bell got added later on onto episode 4 because the way Netflix told him that they picked a handful of drivers based on who they think will make it have a deep playoff run. And none of them picked Christopher Bell, despite the fact that he made it to the championship for last year or the previous season. But anyways, that brought along this cool line.
When I first came onto this project, they were like, all right, these are the guys that we expect to continue into the round of 8 and stuff, because you have to make a plan and make choices and stuff.
I wasn't in that plan, was I?
You were never in that plan.
Imagine that.
And that's another thing I should point out, that Full Speed had a lot of awesome sound bites that just either made added extra bit of flair to that driver's personality or made you laugh. Like this moment when Larson was in his undies or something like that, and someone mentioned it looks like he's going to be on Skin Max. If you don't know what that is, just don't look it up. Anyways, back to what I was saying. One thing that I love with what this series did, it was how they really managed to show the personalities of all the drivers, at least in a way that you could relate. Now, I'm not going to say that every driver made them, larger than life superstars. I'm not saying that at all. But at least in my eyes, there were a couple drivers that I thought, nah, there's no personality. There's really nothing much you can talk about. And yet I left that episode thinking, you know what? I relate more to that driver, or I like this driver more. Gave me more of a reason to cheer for them. There's a lot of drivers in NASCAR I have no emotion to, where if they win or if they lose, I'm like, okay. However, with Full Speed, I left that series, at least with every driver, even the drivers I didn't really care about, made me feel, you know what, for next season, I'm gonna have a bit more of a feeling with that driver. I can relate to that driver, or I like this driver, like that driver, and I'm gonna pull for that driver a lot more than in the past, which I think, again, this series did a great job of doing. You had one for everything. If you were more into the blue collar type of state, Ross Chastain is your guy. If you're more into that cocky side, that guy that, the mastermind, that knows his way both behind the wheel and behind the team, Denny Hamlin's your guy. If you're into that low, laid back, video game feel, William Byron's your guy. If you're into that sneaky, sleepy type of driver that doesn't say much but shows on the racetrack, Christopher Bell's your guy, or Tyler Reddick's your guy. There is really a driver, at least in my eyes, that doesn't matter who it is, anyone could be like, you know what, I'm a pull for that driver, I'm a pull for this driver. But one thing I will say what this series did fantastic at from start to finish was how it portrayed NASCAR. NASCAR, they always have bad luck based on how they're being portrayed. Sometimes it's self-inflicted. I mean, look at NASCAR's first introduction into Netflix, some shitty sitcom called The Crew. The less we mention about that, the better. And then you had Race for the Championship, which was good, but marketed horribly. And now looking at Full Speed makes Race for the Championship look really bad, because Full Speed made NASCAR look so cool. From the camera work to the behind the scenes access, they really made it feel like a big major arena stage. And speaking of that, I also want to mention the reporters with Shannon Spake, Steve Letarte, Dale Jr., and specifically Marty Smith. I love that Marty Smith was on this docuseries because the words that he used to portray certain drivers or to give out the landscape of the championship, NASCAR itself, he made it feel, at least in my eyes, he made it feel like this was an arena type feel, like with gladiators are getting ready to go to war. That's how he made me feel with the words that he was using and how he used it. Like this was the most important thing in the world. So if Full Season comes back for season 2, which I hope it does, you gotta get Marty Smith on that show. Get him on, like how Will Buxton keeps showing up on Drive to Survive. Have Marty Smith be on every single episode of Full Speed, because the way that guy just portrays NASCAR, I love it. And that's the cool thing though, is that Full Speed really flipped it on its head. It made the drivers look cool, or at the very least, it gave drivers a personality that made you feel something. Couldn't be, it could be maybe a little bit or a lot. It made you feel something regardless. Every episode left you feeling something, left you wanting more from whichever driver that they were talking about. And that was the goal of this show. And again, they knocked it out of the park. They gave us unparalleled access that I thought we would never see, like the relationship between the 4 drivers working at Talladega. Again, that's something I think they could have also gone more in depth with. They mentioned it, which I was surprised that they mentioned it, because usually those manufacturer meetings, with Chevrolet, Ford, Toyota at the super speedways, very, closed doors. Don't mention it to the public. So the fact that we got to see it, I thought was really cool. We also got to see the emotions of the sport. Again, people think, oh, NASCAR is nothing. Who cares about that? This show really showed you the emotions of the sport, the jubilation of winning and the agony of defeat. Like when the crew followed Logano to his hauler after he was eliminated after Bristol, or following Christopher Bell after after his brake rotor exploded in the championship race at Phoenix and him and his wife were crying. Or when Hamlin got eliminated at Martinsville and the whole family there and Hamlin's father. And I don't want to go more in depth into it again. I don't want to spoil everything, but this docuseries really made you feel like, damn, why am I getting it? Like, it's like, why am I getting emotional after this stuff? Like, it really made you feel happy, like sad, made you laugh. It gave you all the emotions, at least in my eyes. It really made me feel like, wow, there is more to this sport than meets the eye. And I think, again, Full Speed absolutely crushed it with that by showing that it's more than just drivers turning left. Another thing that I wish they could have touched more on was the physical and mental strength of being a NASCAR driver. They showed a little bit of that with William Byron and Ross Chastain's workout session. They showed a little bit of William Byron watching film, watching races, learning about other drivers and how they race. Again, I wish they would have gone more in depth with that, but I'm glad they touched on that, because that is an underutilized part of NASCAR. They just think they just jump in the car and go. They don't understand how physically demanding it is to be not just a NASCAR driver, but to be a winning NASCAR driver. And to end it off, the thing that I love the most about Full Speed, authenticity. I'm sure you've heard that word a lot, authenticity. This show isn't like Drive to Survive. The thing that I hate so much about Drive to Survive is that they try to tell you what the narrative is, tell you what the story is. You saw season 3, 4, 5, they try to create stories like Lando Norris and Sainz hating each other at McLaren, or Ricciardo and Norris at McLaren hating each other, trying to create rivalries, create battles. I think Sonoda and Gasly as well. So much misplaced team radio to try and make it feel bigger than it is. How they portrayed Roman Grosjean's crash in Bahrain in 2020, making it over dramatic, bigger than it needed to be, really made it look silly in my opinion. Full Speed didn't do that. When they talked about Daytona, I was very interested as how they were going to cover Ryan Preece's crash. We know how horrifying, how jaw-dropping it was. They discussed it, but they didn't do it in a way that just made it feel like, okay, we get it. They didn't over-dramatize it. They didn't stretch it out. They acknowledged it, and they moved on. And it was refreshing to see that they're not trying to create a story or create a narrative. It's like, look, this is what we filmed, and we let you come to your own conclusions about what you thought of it. We're not going to tell you what the story is. You come up with your own conclusions. And I found that very refreshing, is that they didn't try to over dramatize. We did get some great moments from that crash to the great sound bites from Ryan Blaney, especially with his short temper, how giving the middle finger and him shouting on the radio, him in his battle with Hamlin at Miami. Again, every driver had a moment that you just love. Every driver had a moment, I feel like. Even Tyler Reddick's fiance, by saying that she wanted to shake him to tell him to drive through them, which is something I can relate to as a fan. Sometimes you just want your driver to just run through that other guy just to get ahead of him. So every driver, or even like the driver's significant others or family members or crew members, had a part in this show that just left you feeling something that you remember. Speaking of that, the main star, I think, is Booty Barker. He is our Gunther Steiner, except Booty still has a job. But Booty Barker had some great sound bites. Even Booty responding to the producer saying, "I guess I lied to yo ass," is just one of many things I love about Booty Barker. He is raw, he is real, he doesn't BS anything, and he tells you how it is. But yeah, even though he only had, I think, an episode and a half of content, he made the most of it. He made a lot of sound bites for a lot of people that I just love. If you go on Twitter right now, there's a lot of memes already about Booty Barker. So if there is a season 2, I guarantee you he will be a main factor in this in some way, shape, or form. I can already see him being NASCAR's Gunther Steiner with the amount of content that he's going to give us. All right, now let's talk about some of the complaints I have of Full Speed. Number one, I felt like there could have been more. And maybe that's a good thing. Sometimes it's good to give you a little bit. It's like you're eating a chocolate cake and you finish it, it leaves you wanting more and more and more and more. So maybe it's a good thing that they only gave us 5 episodes, but I feel like they could have gone more in depth. Like, for example, we didn't get all the other drivers. We didn't get Kyle Busch, him going to RCR. We didn't get that. Or Brad Keselowski and Chris Buescher, that surprise, RFK Racing having a breakout year. We didn't talk about Kevin Harvick in his final season. I felt like there were a lot of content that was still left on the table to talk about. Now, I also understand that if you only have 5 episodes, covering 16 drivers would be a lot to handle. When you look at Race for the Championship, for example, it felt very clunky at times because they're trying to cram in so much in a short amount of time. With Full Speed, didn't do that. It told the story that they wanted to tell in a way that didn't feel manufactured. They didn't try to over dramatize everything, but I do feel like there could have still been more left in the tank to offer. And maybe that's just me, wanting more episodes because it was so good, but that's just how I view it. So if you did watch the full season of Full Speed, a couple questions I leave wondering. Number one, will there be a season 2? And if so, will we get a full season? Will we get, like what we had with Formula One Drive to Survive, where you got pre-season testing and you got some backstory into the off-season of what happened for the upcoming race season? If we do get a season 2, would we get the full season? Will we just get the playoffs? How is that going to play out? And also, how will Full Speed have effect on NASCAR itself? We know how extremely vital Drive to Survive was in exploding F1 in America. Will NASCAR have the same impact? Well, let's take a look at F1's Drive to Survive numbers. In Season 1 in 2019, they had, in the first week, around 300,000 viewers. Season 2, obviously this was during COVID, 200,000, but then uptick again in Season 3, exploded in Season 4 and in Season 5. So Season 1, around 300,000. Would NASCAR get something similar to that nature? Again, it will all depend on marketing and promotion based on NASCAR and Netflix themselves. But to end it off, will Full Speed's impact on NASCAR be the same as F1's Drive to Survive? I don't think so, because of the fact that so many things work together for Formula One. When COVID happened, they had 3 seasons worth of content. COVID happened, everyone was in lockdown, and they all were stuck binge watching everything on Netflix. And Drive to Survive had 3 seasons worth of content. So that gave maybe people that didn't know anything about F1 something to watch and something to learn. Well, now we're in 2023, no lockdown, no nothing like that. And on top of that, competition with the streaming business is a lot bigger than it was in 2020. Netflix, I don't think, has the same foothold on streaming as it did in the past. But with all that aside, I do think if we can get multiple seasons, I don't think just 1 season, 5 episodes, I don't think that's going to be enough. But if we do get multiple seasons of Full Speed, I do think that this could have a very positive impact on NASCAR in bringing in younger viewers. I've already seen on social media people that have watched Formula E, F1, like other types of racing series across the world have started to take notice in NASCAR Full Speed and been starting to watch it. So it already is having an effect, albeit not a big one. It is starting to make some noise, and hopefully down the line, when we do get more seasons of Full Speed, it can create a new era for NASCAR. But again, I highly recommend. I didn't go over all the episodes because you have to watch this series. It is really, really good. They smashed it out of the park again. Aside from those issues, I say issues, it's not really issues with the series. Ultimately, there's nothing I really have a major problem with. I really enjoyed it from start to finish. I know this because I watched it twice. I watched it this morning. I stayed up all night to watch it the first run, and then right after work, I watched it all again. So I love this series, and it gets me so amped up for the NASCAR season to begin this weekend at the Clash at the LA Coliseum. I cannot wait for that. Let me know what your thoughts on NASCAR Full Speed is in the comment section down below, and do you think that Full Speed will have the same impact or a similar impact that Drive to Survive did with F1? Again, let me know in the comment section down below. As always, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe for more content. Until next time, my name is Jett from MDK. Thanks for watching.